Hey guys, welcome to Dialed MTB again. We are here with the 2021 Norco Optic C2 Shimano Build. So this build comes with performance elite suspension from Fox with the Fox 36 with the Grip 2 in the front and the DPX 2 in the rear. 125 millimeters rear travel, 140 up front. This build is a tiny bit different than stock. I put DD carbon bars on it, I put the Fox fender on, and Maxxis tires. So I went with the Maxxis tires because after a couple rides I did put a hole in the Martello on the rear that comes with this bike. The tires felt pretty good. They weren't amazing, but they weren't bad. Like, I would just use them until they wore out if I didn't put a hole in it. But my go-to where I live here in Boise, Idaho is this Aggressor on the rear and the DHR2 in the front, which I just really enjoy. So if you do get the bike and you have an extra, it's gonna be about 150 bucks, that would be the one thing I would change. Not the carbon bars. I would put the Fox fender on it because that's sweet. All right, so other than that spec, let's go ahead and jump right into how this bike rides. This is why you are watching the video. So let's go into climbing first and then we'll go into descending after. All right, here we go on the climb. This bike climbs really comfortably, has a lot of traction. It does have the trail mode and the lockout on the Fox DPX2 rear shock, which is a nice feature. But I will say, when I first started riding the bike, I was trying it all a bunch, and now that I have a few hundred miles in on the bike, I literally do not touch it ever. It is always an open. So there's that. It does climb a little bit more efficiently in the trail mode, which is expected, but not enough for me to forget about it when I get to the top of the climb and then descend and trail, because it descends so well. You want it to work as good as you know it can. Other than that, for climbing, like, it's not gonna be the slowest climber. It's not gonna be the fastest. For like the 120, 130 millimeter of rear travel range, this has 125 in the back, obviously, 140 up front. But just saying, like, it's comfortable. It's gonna have more traction than probably most, which is nice. All right, so how am I gonna rate this for the climbs? I rated the Tall Boy a 4.5 out of 5. The Yeti SB115 would be around there, maybe a tiny bit better. Maybe if we're doing like smaller increments, maybe like a 4.7. This bike, it's not as good as the Tall Boy for the climb, but it's not way far behind either. So I'd probably put it right around a 4 out of 5. All right, now let's go ahead and get to the fun stuff. The descent, which is where this bike absolutely shines. All right, we're going down the flow trail here at Eagle Bike Park. Once again, I usually come here for a lot of my videos, but those are most of the time a little bit, I'd say, like mid-travel trail bikes, not the shorter ones in the 120 millimeter range. But it just didn't feel right to bring this bike to like a cross-country style trail, because that is not what this bike is meant for. It just feels so composed over all these jumps, and then later on when we're in a little bit steeper and rockier section, they just feel so good in that. So that's why I'm out here. If you're wondering why. But the bike, like I just kind of talked about, it is so good for a 125mm rear travel bike. It's absolutely ridiculous. So this bike is the C2 Shimano Build, so it's XT everything, and Performance Elite suspension with a Grip 2 damper. So it is absolutely a killer build. And for the money, I honestly don't know if there's any bike out there right now that has as good of a spec for that price. That is a bike you'd buy in an actual bike shop, not direct to consumer. All right, here we go down Shake and Bake. So this bike has a 65.0 degree head tube angle, which is probably part of the reason why I brought this to a rougher place than what I would for a lower travel trail bike. And the reach across the line, small is 430, medium 450, large is 480. So it's kind of not a long bike, but it's definitely not short either. And I think that's part of the reason why this bike feels more like what I'd say like the Santa Cruz High Tower feels like, but at just a quite a bit lower price point for the value. So right up here is where I put a hole in the stock tire. This section right here. Right there's where I put a hole in it, and that's why I switched to some Maxxis tires. But I mean, still, there's very few things on this bike that I would ever complain about. So we've got a trail work sign going on, so I'm just gonna cruise through here, make sure nothing's bad or there's people. Well, it looks like everything's all good, but anyways, yeah, Norco completely killed it with this bike. They could have made it a little bit easier to climb on, but if they did that, then it would take away from the descending characteristics, which are just way too good. Literally, like, it's ridiculous how good this bike feels. I bottom out pretty often, actually. On that run, looks like I used all the travel front and rear, and there was never once where I actually thought that I did use all the travel or bottomed out. So just goes to show you like how good it feels. And also the Norco ride-a-line system, 100% set your bike up like that to start. All right, so not that this bike isn't good on cross-country stuff, it's an absolute blast on that too, but it's just so good on the jumps and the chunky stuff and the steeper stuff that that's what I wanted to show in this video. But I will be on some of this stuff to show you that it's still freaking shreds and just some cross-country terrain also. All right, so who is this bike for? I think it's for a couple different people. One, someone that's gonna be riding just regular trail riding that also wants to maybe go to a bike park or go on a few trips every year and go to some gnarlier places, or if they do have some gnarlier stuff near their home, then this is 100% a great bike for that. Or two, maybe you race enduros and you have a big enduro bike, 170 millimeter travel, front and rear bike, and you just need a trail bike that still can bring you down some gnarly stuff, and it's not going to be way different than your enduro bike, so you don't feel way off on it. I think that's kind of the two perfect people for this bike. So, what do I think about this bike? Where am I going to place it for the descents? In this category, there's absolutely no way that this would score less than 5 out of 5 for the descent. If I could go higher, I would. I'd go 6 out of 5 because it's just that good. Okay, so let's do a quick summary of this bike. It is super rad to start with. Like, if you get this bike, you're gonna love it no matter what. It climbs well. It's definitely a better descender than it is a climber, but it still climbs well for what it is. It feels like a big bike compared to what you're actually riding, which is crazy. And then, so like I said, I gave it about a 4 on the climb, maybe 3.9, just trying to get to that 4. If we were doing like a 100 scale, I'd probably put it right at like a 75 out of 100. So if that might clarify a little bit. And then the descending, like I said in the downhill, this bike just shreds. It is so good. I don't think there's another bike in its class that can go down as well as this bike does. Like I said, it was 5 out of 5, 100% 5 out of 5. If I could do more, I'd give it more than 5 if that was a possibility. Like I said, 6 out of 5 is my score. But overall, this bike is super rad. It has a price tag of $5,099, which is probably better than any other bike that you're going to find in a shop for what build you're getting. The only downsides of this bike that come stock, I would say, are the tires, because I put a hole in them, and the seat post. It's an X Fusion, nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't make you super excited about it either. Other than that, rock solid bike. Norco killed it with this one, knocked it out of the park. Alright guys, so let me know in the comments down below if you want me to compare this to any bikes. I was thinking possibly the Tall Boy, but I think it's just, for the downhill, it's just kind of out of this category, which is crazy to say. But then I was thinking Hightower, but I don't know if people are really looking at the Hightower and looking at this bike, comparing it, and like wanting to buy that. But what bike would you guys like me to compare it to, if any? Maybe it's just a bike in its own and there's no comparing it to anything. But anyways, if you guys like this video, like and subscribe for more like this, and give me a comment what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. Get out and ride, guys.